Continuing the notes to major trends in Jewish mysticism. One thing we find with mystical writings is sometimes it's not entirely clear whether they mean these things literally. We're in note 151. I'm not sure exactly where we are, so we say Wukal Debriham Bahikal Hamlak Panima Matukim Mudbush Wanupat Sopim Wum Subratum Waniyanyaham Was Wadutiham Shubrutchu Amham Bahchuba Akshiyu Yesh Ata Lahat Aur Wul Balut Al-Sud Anin Gen Aden Wamchul Kumyu Waniyanu Wanudutu Wakdim Lek Batachila Autumn Haniyanim Asher Het Aru Hakmi Aliyun Hakdamunim Zain Lemid Watsapinu Basturiham Balmuk Chekmatum Wishalu Aishmat Rahu Shalut Maninim Amuqim Wabdabrim Atiqim. Devarim is Deuteronomy, right? Wish Yabu Autumn Deber Lahamidum Al Dat Shukan Shmi Arts Wasud Hachkama Hamukha La Nagra Mabudatum Deber Asher La Hagidu Waktabu Wahayadu Kabbalah, the word for Kabbalah. Nakuna Mamrumim Kol Allah Hachukmim Asher Ain Dirk Lunthut Yumyan Washmal Wub Sibat Al-Nutinu Asher Gurmu Aslet Ged Bunny Amnu One Dedu Buglutum Wumrah Al-Rah Yitz'al Azi Nush Tukchu Ko Hachkamut Hashkoliut Ayini Hachkama Yabshu Wansau Woodbur Memna La Yad'au Ki Ain Duresh Wayne Mabkush Wal Kun Abda Chukma Mabnim Wakalim Maklim. Remember, the meme in front is often denoting a possessive or a character trait. You know, if you know, if that's added to a root. Shunim, Walacher, Durut, Namshuku, Atru, Dubri, Habli, Mashli, Hiyunim, We, Hiyu, Lachur, Wala, Lepnim, Kasher, Amrati, Was, Dirty, Kol, Za, Buspar, Ba, Qadmat, Separ, Harmoon, Shashiti, and 152 regards the same source, the manuscript in Berlin, 833, but this time it's folio 58b, in which we have Yud Yud, Yuda key, okay, but the quote here is Waf al P, Shata Ani Mugla, Sudutum al Alhim. And sometimes there's a wow in that when you're referring to older manuscripts, but this is, of course, something much newer than that. It's a word used by monotheists and polytheists, but it, you know, references all divinity when the term's being used. Ku'unti hia lefuba lam'an rabim yachkamu wichaziku uter bam untu yet we shim'au we ladu we yurau al napashutam we shumchu bi udam humped wathub hagnuz let's diqim kadishi zaku bu. 153, Jelinek Moses de Leon, page 21. 154, note 154. The following interesting passage found in Separ Hermoon, the manuscript in the British Museum, folio 107 to 108a. Urati Anshim Shahyu Meshtadlim Batura Wabudbri Raz Lemed Mem Walila, and the night. Wahyu Au Badim at Hemkum Bethub Labeb Kapi Harawi Wihi Hiyum We Buau Bani Sapri Hiyunim Lahatyatsab Al Yud Yud Weba Gem Hashthan Batukam We Asbu Makur Mim Chiyam Wishtadlu Bautam Hasprim We Mushku Datum Achuriham Ad Asher Asbu Debri Hatura Wa Matsuut We Sholikum Achri Gum Wahyu Chu Shabim Def Qaf Cheth Ein Aleph Dubri Rez Lemed Leshker Baumad Datum Hatchets Una Wahna Ainkul Wayne Auna Ki Rech Ukim Hema Mahiyunim Wow Zuriham Were Uch Halhut Ein Baham Ad Asher Hama Nahpaku Lanshim Achrim We Tahu Al Her Ash Unut Wow Durkiham Hathubim Asher Helku Baham Kudam We Tol Uts to We Lagu Al Debri Zain Lemed Zulati Shahyu Nush'im Panim Bupni Herbim We Amru Ki Dirk Chesidut Hu Aushim Shla Hu Medbrim Rah Burbim Al Rez Lemed Mapni Shahyu Metyam La Mapni Dubber Atcher Wachu Shabim Ki Shup Shut Kol Debrihim Ad Ki Kasher Hu Mati Yachdim Za Am Za Mul Aim Wam Tul Utsim Wam Shut Ashayim Bud Bri He Unim Wow Zuriham One Wushkim Debriham Woud Rati Laham Bimi Hag Hasukut Shaumadim Bumkumum Babha Wur Uaim Abdi Halhim Subim Bul Ulabim Sabib, flying thing. Samak Tau Betiba Waham Shuchkim Wam La Yagyam Aliham Waumer Ki Suklim Has Chasiri Dat Wolham Ein Lulab Wallah Atrug Wamru Beth Anatam Hala Hatura Amra Shokticha Zu Bashbil Shaktub Washmuchtam Lepni Yud Alikam Shabbat Yum Atam Chu Shabim Shibwa Alu Haminim Lash Mechnu Halathub Kli Kasaf Wakli Zahab Wash Malut Lash Machnu Will Anganu. And we're still going on note 154 here, but we will get to the notes on lecture 6 here. Wamru Hala Chesh Batum Shanu Sri Kim Lebruk at Hashem Huwa Tsarik Za Hakal Habal Ad Asher La Nura Barasham Taplin Wash Alu Laham Lama Hiyu Almarim Ain Anin Hat Pilin Zu Lati Kamu Shaktub Wal Zukrun Bin Ainik Huwail Wayne Zikrun Thub Lanu Lezkur Lebura Bapinu Kama Pamim Bium Wazhu Zakrun Shahya Thuba Waguna Utar Waluchim Autumn Hesprim Ruaim Autumn Hedbrim Walmurim Ki Zuhya Turat Amat Watupashi Hatura Hu Matchabain Budbriham Wallah Hya Labam Mala Ledber Apilu Deber Achad Kol Shukan Debrim Atrim Atiqim Shahya Bakbalat Saqanim Qadamunim Wallah Lam Labam Ladbram Walazkur Autum Vapiham Al Saba Zu Nesh Tukcha Herba Tura Mishral Ad Asher Higher Hashem Ruch Atrat Wolkachu Bani Adam Atsa Thuba Leshub Atcher Dot Habura Hamiti Yet Wahbinu Debrim Budbri Rezlemed Batawurut Math Shah Tawurut Abel Aud Ham Mezbachim Wam Qathrim Bebmut Wallah Hanichu Datum Muckle Wuckle Lah Shuttle Achri Hatura Hakducha Tura Tswa Lanu Masha Mu Rasha. And remember that is what? Keeper of the sheep? And it's a title for, it's Moses, the secret word for Moses. But 155 in his Meshkin Adut in the manuscript Berlin, folio 32a, the passage here is described vaguely to be Mura Sadak. And Sadak is the word for Jupiter, and it's the word for righteousness, so yeah. Perhaps he did not want to mention Aristotle's name and so sublime the connection, because they knew that Aristotle was a philosopher rather than having religious authority, according to that side. And you will find that some aspects of some of these texts change via the cultures that they're in, how much Greek influence here, how much Arabic, or how much Berber, or how much whatever side of Europe. 156. Steinschneider, who thought little of Moses de Leon's merits, said in his acid way, "We unser Gewissenloser Bücher Fabrikant überhaupt gerne sich in Moralisation ergeht," of his Catalogue of the Hebrew Manuscript in Berlin, Volume 2, 1897, page 39. This reminds one of the naive exclamation of John of Scythopolis, about 540, the first Greek commentator of Dionysius, who said of pseudo-Dionysius, the pseudo-Dionysius, the Areopagite. What a desperate human being would a writer have to be who misused the names of so many sacred persons and things from early Christian times for such a fabric of lies, and who yet proved to be, for the rest, so pious and enlightened a writer. And notes to Lecture 6, the Zohar 2, the Theosophic Doctrine. And one of the things that's very clear, there's either straight-up pseudo-epigraphy or misrepresentation of which Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John they were. Except for John and the writings that we call the Book of Revelations, nothing has fragments from that first century of the Common Era. And we know that there was a Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Matthew, Mark, and Luke in the 2nd century that were prominent church leaders that were rumored early on to have written the book of Acts and the Gospels to their names. And they waited till the earliest manuscripts of some of that stuff, the 120s, the 130s, the 140s, the 150s. We don't have any of the letters of John, of Peter, and Paul and all that were presumed to have been starting in the 60s or something before but we don't have evidence of that. Why is there evidence of everything else? Why is that stuff? Because Apollonius had to die, because Apollonius was part of this Paul story and the Jesus story, so 20 years had to go by to write the book of Acts and the book of, anyways. But a person's just as enlightened regardless of their nefarious things to the side. Now, you don't necessarily excuse dishonesty or whatever, but anyways. Note 1 of Abu Lafia's commentary to the Torah, written in 1289 in Messina, we still possess Semek Meptech Hatchkamut to Genesis manuscript of Parma, 141, New York Jewish Theological Seminary, 843, Semek Meptech Hashmut to Exodus, manuscript New York, 843, Semek Meptech Hespirut to Numbers manuscript Ambrosiana, 53, Semek Meptech Hatukatcha to Deuteron, manuscript Oxford 805. 2. There can be little doubt in the opinion of Gershom Scholem that the famous stanzas of the mysterious book Dzyan, on which Madame H.P. Blavatsky's magnum opus, The Secret Doctrine, is based, owe something both in title and content to the pompous pages of the Zoharic writing called Sifra de Tzeniutha. Well, it certainly sounds like that, right? The first to advance this theory without further proof was L.A. Bossman, a Jewish theosophist, in his booklet The Mysteries of the Kabbalah, 1916, page 31. This seems to me indeed the true etymology of the hereto unexplained title. Madame Blavatsky had drawn heavily upon Nor von Rosenroth's Kabbalah Denodata 1677-1684, which contains volume 2, page 347 to 385, a Latin translation of the Sifra de Tzeniutha. The solemn and magniloquent style of these pages may well have impressed her susceptible mind. As a matter of fact, H.P.B. herself alludes to such a connection between the two books in the very first lines of Isis Unveiled, Volume 1, page 1, where she still refrains from mentioning the book Dzyan by name. I much prefer HPL, which, as a rule, just puts stuff into his fiction without, claiming this is the reality or something, right? And without trying to start a whole religion out of it, at least not obviously, right? But the transcription used by her for the Aramaic title shows clearly what she had in mind. She says, there exists somewhere in this world an old book. It is the only original copy now in existence, the most ancient Hebrew document on occult learning. The Sifra Tzeniutha was compiled from it. The book Dzyan is therefore nothing but an occultist hypostasy of the Zoharic title. Well, the way of, as a Greek, we don't say it, we don't really transfer it, we come up with a new version sometimes, and then the Latins did the same, and then the various European and American cultures have done the same, so it's hard to find reference to a lot of this ancient stuff in history, whether there's a bunch of change of meaning and it's insulting or not. It's hard to find some of the stuff unless you know, what's the word in the other language, because sometimes it's quite different, right? Who would have guessed that Jezebel is Azbal? But if you say Yizbal, it's going to mean, or Yizbal, it would mean something completely different. This bibliographical connection between the fundamental writings of modern and of Jewish theosophy seem remarkable enough. 3. See the second lecture to section 10. 4. Merkabat Hemshana. Shana is the word for year, right? Or not exactly a year, but a term used by Theodorus, Abelafia, Moses of Burgos, etc. 5. Hamerkaba, the throne chariot thing. Hup Nimit, and that's supposed to be a very common term. 6, particularly the writings centering on the Semek Hayun and the Semek Mayan. Hatchkama. See his article in Korrespondenzblatt der Akademie der Wissenschaft des Judentums, 1928, page 18. 14th century Kabbalists like David ben Yehuda in Sefer Hegabul, the oldest commentary on the Idra Rabbah in the Zohar, refer to Thut-Chut, which are above the Sephiroth. So, you know, that wasn't... But, well, this is later, but there was stuff that probably talked of something like the Ein Sup Ar, or Hour, yeah. It's not Ein, but the last one. See also Curveros, Surdum, Bramunim, chapter 11, Shar, Hetz, Chut. 8, we can refer to the first lecture, section 4. The Zohar uses the term Ein Sup without translating it into Aramaic. It was first used by Isaac the Blind and his disciples. Now, if Aramea is what the language was called that was used in writing Tanakh. And it was called that before the historical appearances of the Israelites. But there were some changes that rendered it into whatever. But I personally prefer to use a Kabbalah that has recaptured the biblical language in its terms as much as possible. So if you notice me pronouncing some things different, I am using the biblical spelling, or I'm using the, you know, that period of language. I'm talking more about my work other than scholastic presentations here, but yeah. 9 of the anthropomorphic passages in the book Bahir, Gikatilla's preface to his Share Ora, the formula used in the text, is found in Ibn Latif's Reb Palim 9 and Emmanuel Hai Riki, Yushur Labeb, Part 1, Chapter 3, number 15. 10, Zohar 3, 159a, Tarbez, Volume 3, page 38. The interpretation of the passage found in the English translation on Volume 5, page 226, is incorrect, and a lot of this incorrect stuff is sectarian, so it's hard to tell sometimes. 11, Zohar 3, 70a. The phrase itself is taken from the Sefer Yetzirah, chapter 1, 6. 12, D.H. Joel, Die Religionsphilosophie des Zohar, 1849, particularly page 179. 13, the most important enumeration and analysis of such symbols of the Sephiroth is contained in Gikatilla's Shari Aura Semek, are also